The Empire Strikes Back. In 1997 book, Donald Trump dishes on ex-wives, foes and germs. New York Daily News published this on October 17, 1997. It was written by Paul Schwartzman. Donald Trump says he is sorry he never dated Princess Diana, dumped Ivana and Marla because they nagged him about work, and wants people to bow to him because he fears that shaking hands transmits germs. In a rollicking new memoir celebrating his rise from near financial ruin, Trump says he relishes the opportunity to repay those who knocked him when he was down. A couple of people who betrayed me need my help now, and I'm screwing them to the wall, the mogul says in his third book, Trump, The Art of the Comeback, which Random House is publishing next week. The book is Trump's 226-page version of how he recovered from two marital splits and $9 billion in debts. He attributes his success to both his business smarts and how he coped after splitting with his two wives. Along the way, he expounds on women, marriage and personal hygiene. And he drops enough names to fill a phone book, detailing his dealings with everyone from Henry Kissinger to Howard Stern to Sylvester Stallone. His one regret in the women department is that he never got to court Princess Diana. I met her on a number of occasions. I couldn't help but notice how she moved people, Trump says. She was a genuine princess, a dream lady. Among the highlights, Trump dislikes shaking hands, especially after someone may have just left the bathroom, and wants people to bow to him as if it's a Japanese custom. Trump says he grew apart from Ivana because she bored him with endless talk about her business. Later, though, he found himself growing apart from Marla Maples because she wanted him home by 5 p.m. He decided to divorce Ivana after the deaths of three friends in a 1989 helicopter crash inspired him to confront the fragility of life. On the other hand, it was an unlikely person who convinced him it was time to marry Marla, Colin Ferguson. When Ferguson shot up a Long Island Railroad train, Trump says that he again realized that life was too uncertain not to marry the person he loved. Trump says that society women routinely plead with him to have sex, while stars like Madonna and figure skater Katarina Witt fabricate stories about him asking them for dates. He vows never to say a bad word about Ivana, but then proclaims that he vanquished her in divorce proceedings, scoffs at the advice she dispenses to unhappily married women, and accuses her of trading on his name. Trump has pithy advice for men on what to do before getting married: get a prenuptial agreement. And his recommendation for how a husband should deal with a wife who wants him home more: dump her. He settles scores with rivals like developer Sam LeFrak, whom he calls crude, to Merv Griffin, with whom he tangled in a casino deal, to the bankers who controlled his life when he was in debt. Trump has authored two previous books, Trump, The Art of the Deal, and Trump, Surviving at the Top. This book, co-authored with CNBC correspondent Kate Bohner, takes up the storyline in his darkest hours, when banks were on his case. He was billions in debt, and Ivana, in Trump's words, was telling him, "I van my money now. I van my money now." By the end of the book, Trump has fended off Ivana's grab for his fortune, worked major deals, such as the purchase of 40 Wall Street, and maintains he is $3 billion in the black. He issues his own top 10 ways to come back, including, stay focused, go against the tide, get even, play golf, and always have a prenuptial agreement. With undisguised bravado, Trump says, when I'm attacked, in a strange way, so is New York. His bottom-line advice, be suspect, be guarded. Let paranoid reign! Ivana My Money'Trump thought highly enough of Ivana's business sense that he tapped her to run one of his Atlantic City casinos and then take over the Plaza Hotel. He even called her an excellent manager. Now he regrets that his big mistake was taking her out of a role of wife. Work was all she wanted to talk about, Trump complains. I work from 6 a.m. until 7 or 8 that night. To come home and hear more was just not tolerable. And Ivana just wouldn't stop. I soon began to realize that I was married to a business person rather than a wife. The couple's 12-year marriage, he says, was not broken up by his affair with Marla. The final straw was the helicopter crash that killed 3 executives who ran one of his Atlantic City casinos. Trump would have been on the helicopter if he hadn't had to attend another meeting. The tragedy prompted him to reflect on how unhappy he was in his marriage. Trump insists that he will never deride Ivana but then dismisses his ex-wife as an okay businesswoman who runs a little business. He ridicules her for once claiming she would drop the name Trump only to switch back after realizing his name is a great big asset. Ivana built a cottage industry on my back, he cites. Mostly, Trump says, he is bitter about how she went after him at his low point. Once they separated, Ivana triggered a bitter dispute when she challenged the legality of their $25 million prenuptial agreement. Ivana, Trump says, demanded $150 million. After months of wrangling, she telephoned Trump during what he says was the worst moment of his life the morning that the New York Times reported on its front page that he was suffering from epic financial difficulties. Trump thought Ivana was calling to offer condolences. He was wrong. "I want my money now," Ivana coldly demanded, Trump says, mimicking her Czech accent. While he honored his financial commitment to her, Trump says Ivana portrayed herself as a poster girl for wives trashed by greedy, unfaithful husbands. "Ivana really didn't treat me fairly, and she knows this," he says. She would appear on talk shows and make speeches about how other women should follow her lead. She would talk about how she survived, when in actuality, all I did was pay what I agreed to pay and live up to every inch of the agreement. Some husbands would just disappear, leaving their wives stranded with no money, he says. And there sat Ivana in her fancy dresses, all paid for by me, telling these women how to live. Ivana always calls me when she needs help. And then, after I get her straightened out, she forgets to say thank you." Loving and leaving Marla Trump and Marla, the model and aspiring actress with whom he was living, had a baby girl they named Tiffany in October 1993. In December, Ferguson went on a shooting spree in which he killed 6 people and wounded 19 others. Trump says that was a turning point. Although gun-shy about marriage after Ivana, Trump says Ferguson's rampage once again reminded him of the tenuousness of life, and inspired him to propose a walk downhill with Marla. "Everything can end so quickly, so abruptly," he says. Their marriage lasted 3 years. But, oh, what a wedding! Trump savors every opulent detail: the 1,000 guests packed into the plaza, the $2 million tiara that Marla wore, the 6-foot-tall wedding cake, the $60,000 he spent on caviar. His marriage to Marla ended, Trump says, because they grew apart. Marla objected to his devotion to his work, even though, he says, it allowed her to live like a queen. "Why can't you be home at 5 o'clock like other husbands?" he says she would ask. "I always viewed her wives as being very selfish." He may have made another mistake at the altar with Marla, but Trump was learning when it came to his prenuptial agreements. If Marla contests their contract, Trump says she will pay all his legal bills if she loses. But the couple have not yet hammered out a final agreement as Trump had hoped. Prenups, women and when to walk to married friends who complain about nagging wives. Trump's advice is simple: ditch him. "I'm not a great believer in always trying to work things out," he says. "For a man to be successful, he needs support at home. Not someone who is always griping and bitching." An executive friend confided to Trump that a subordinate was having troubles at home. Trump's response: "If he doesn't lose the ball breaker, his career will go nowhere." In Trump's world, women are much stronger than men. "Their sex drive makes us look like babies," he writes. "Some women try to portray themselves as being the weaker sex, but don't believe it for a moment." When it comes to prenuptial agreements, Trump says there are 3 types of women: all gold diggers. There are those who will refuse to sign agreements on principle because they love their future husband for himself. "I fully understand this," he says, "but the man should take a pass anyway and find someone else." The second type, Trump says, is more calculating, refusing to sign because she is expecting to take advantage of the sucker she got. The third type, Trump says, is eager to sign a prenuptial agreement to make a quick hit and take the money given to her. The type who acknowledges that all of this may sound horrible to those who lead normal lives, but says that, in his world, this kind of crap happens all the time. The ladies' Manon night. Trump went to a dinner party hosted by a woman he describes as among the world's most admired people. He was seated next to a lady of great social pedigree and wealth. Her husband sat on the other side of the table. During their chat, Trump says he felt her groping his knee, then his leg. He accepted the woman's invitation to dance, but then she got even more aggressive even after Trump pointed out that her husband and his wife were sitting at the nearby table. "Donald, I have to have you. I have to have you now," the woman gushed. In another instance, Trump says he was parked on Fifth Avenue when he bumped into an unnamed socialite who was about to be married. She asked for a ride to her Park Avenue apartment. Within 5 minutes of climbing into his limousine, Trump says the woman was all over him wanting to get screwed. after Trump reminded the woman that she was getting married in a week and that he was an invited guest. He says the woman told him she didn't care. "I was really in a quandary, because she is a truly great-looking woman," Trump says. He does not reveal how he resolved his dilemma. Then there are the stars, Trump says, who will use his good name to get themselves public attention. Madonna, he claims, pulled the ruse after they saw each other at a benefit to which she arrived dressed beautifully except for the combat boots. The next day, he says he was incensed because she had leaked a phony story claiming that he asked her for a date and was turned down. He insists German skater Katarina Witt tried the same stunt after he dared tell her that the music she skated to was horrible. These days, Trump says, he's not interested in getting married, or even dating regularly. Of course, it's not because he doesn't get the opportunity. Don't get me wrong, I've gotten more suggestions than I can keep track of, he says. It's just not one of my first priorities at the moment. Fall, rise and revenge. Trump says his staggering $9 billion debt in 1990 included $975 million that he had personally guaranteed. He blames the Persian Gulf War, new tax codes and crashing real estate market for his downfall. He also says that all his success in the 1980s had made him a bit cocky and lazy. At his lowest, he suffered the public humiliation of defaulting on a mortgage payment for Trump Castle and, to raise cash, had to sell off assets like one of his hotels and his 282-foot yacht. In rebuilding his empire, the deal Trump seems most proud of was his 1996 purchase of 40 Wall Street for $1 million. He has poured $35 million into renovating the 72-story office building and now expects to make $20 million a year from rents. He says his name on his new Trump International building at Columbus Circle added as much as $200 a square foot to the rental price. And he claims Trump Tower is a New York icon and that it attracts the biggest tourist crowds in the city. But Trump has not forgotten bankers and others who tried to hurt him. He rips Merv Griffin for bragging about outsmarting Trump in gaining control of the Atlantic City Casino Resorts International. Behind his public persona of a sweet, roly-poly easygoing person, he can be nasty and vicious, Trump says. He chides developer Sam LeFrak for being openly happy about his troubles. He derides Ben Burton of Mid-Atlantic Bank as a monster and a jerk for issuing a default notice for the smallest nothing and alleges he cost the bank millions. Trump also dumps on Patricia Goldstein of Citibank, who he says was rotten to him even after he pulled strings at her tearful urging to get her dying husband into a hospice run by the Catholic Church. He said Goldstein never even thanked him.